Hi and welcome to The Mind of a Skeptical Leftist. I'm your host, Cory, and today I'm joined by Felicia Entwistle.
Yeah.
I've been practicing.
Well done. Well done. Oh, let me mute my phone. I am so sorry. I think I've been doing this for years or something.
So you are still a co-host on the Utah Outcasts?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I had to take quite a bit of a hiatus. I got really sick.
And how are you feeling now?
Much better. It turns out surgery works. So,
good.
But it works. It works.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I have endometriosis, which can be like a really debilitating disease. And then also I had a cyst that normally shouldn't have caused any problems. They just a normal cyst, but it died.
Ooh.
And yeah, that made me very, very unwell for many months, like really bad. My doctor, when I had my post-op appointment, she told me she's only seen this one other time, and it caused agonizing pain. And it did.
I bet. Yeah. Geez.
Yeah. So I didn't have the ability, like I didn't have the energy to do the show very much, but I'm back now. I was back this last week.
Good.
I have to get back on schedule for it.
Get back into the routine, eh?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's good. I'm excited to finally be doing that again. I have not quit. I just had to take a hiatus because I was unwell.
And you
had insurance, so.
And you had COVID during that whole time too, right?
I did. I didn't actually get sick from it though.
Okay, good.
I tested positive, and my surgery actually got delayed like 2 months because I tested positive.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a real nightmare situation.
No kidding.
So, so I had to like live another 2 months with something dead inside me apparently. Like, So, yeah.
That sounds awful. I'm glad you're through it. I'm glad you're through it. That's so I guess aside from personal stuff, last time we spoke was on my old show, Brainstorm, and we talked about how you were learning about communism, and you had kind of approached and started calling yourself a communist, but now you call yourself an anarchist.
Yes.
So how did you get from there to here?
Well, the last time we spoke, I was already on my way towards anarchy. I just didn't really understand a lot of the philosophy behind it. So I didn't want to, take it on. And I just couldn't. It's not that I didn't want to. It's that you can't take on a label of something you don't understand. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair.
By the time when we last spoke, I was definitely already. In retrospect, it's easy to see how I was already going down a libertarian socialist route. But, yeah. And so, I mean, I personally, I really hate when it's like there's communists and then there's anarchists, because like anarchy is a form of communism, or rather it's like the idealized form of communism, right?
Yeah. In a sense, any other form of like communism with leaders seems almost, I don't know, to me it seems counterintuitive, right?
Right. Well, and if we look at classical Marxist, the idea was that we would get to a society stateless, moneyless, classless, right?
Right.
And so it just
sounds like anarchy to me.
Yeah. And a lot of Marxist Leninists will say that, like, well, we'll eventually achieve that goal through this, but we have to have a vanguard. And I'm like, I don't think that's how this works.
Yeah, that seems to be one of the main points of contention between MLs and the anarchists is like they want to use the state to eventually eliminate the state. But I don't. Yeah.
If the state is so effective at that kind of organizing, then why would we eliminate it? And I don't see any evidence of the state being that effective at that kind of organizing. So,
and I think historically, like using the state as the tool to overthrow whatever and build your quote unquote dictatorship of the proletariat, it hasn't ultimately resulted in a classless, stateless society. Like,
right.
So
it just kind of ends up doing the exact same thing. It ends up being or state communism, right?
Right. Yeah. Which, I mean, I guess some people are okay with
state capitalism. I mean, like,
yeah.
If we look at China and even the Soviet Union towards its end,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not even getting into Stalin as like,
right. Yeah. That was bad.
Yeah, Stalin was bad. I'm a communist, and Stalin was bad.
Yes.
I tend to throw the words around still really interchangeably. Like, I'm a socialist, I'm a communist, I'm an anarchist.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
a libertarian socialist. It really depends on what context I'm speaking in, I guess.
Yeah. That's why I use the word leftist for the title of the show, because they're, in a lot of ways, they're interchangeable. It's just at some point, some points we have divergence, right?
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily opposed to working with Marxist-Leninists right now, because I think there are tankies, but a lot of Marxist-Leninists are not tankies.
Right, right, yeah.
They're just convinced by that methodology in like the classical literature, and I think that we can we share a hi.
Hey, kitty.
He's got a comb. He's going to the vet soon. It's been hard finding him a vet. A lot of vets aren't taking new patients right now.
Oh, is that right? Jeez.
Yeah. So, he's got like allergies or something. We don't know. But anyway, like I'm not. So a lot of Marxist-Leninists, I think we share a lot of interest in ending capitalism, and as much as I do believe in the abolition of the state, I am not convinced that that's an immediate thing that's feasible, because I'm not an authoritarian, and I don't want to force people like into a situation where I feel like they would necessarily be more open to my idea. First of all, I don't think that's necessarily effective. Second of all, like I do think that the state is another aspect that we need to work against, but I think anarchism can be dynamic that way. That's another really good advantage of anarchy, is that it's dynamic in its approach to these things. So
yeah, for sure. It's not a rigid set of rules, right? Like,
right. Yeah, that's kind of our thing, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And the great thing is that if we work with Marxist-Leninists and we overthrow capitalism, dreaming big. I'm still trying. But if we overthrow it, then we can address the issues of the state, and we can have those political discussions. And like in democratic socialism, you know, they are also for the existence of a state, at least for the time being.
Right.
And I do think that having a collective body, at least to oppose the forces of capital in our current situation, is something we can utilize. If we have to have a state, we can use that as a source of pressure on the capitalist institutions. So like, yeah,
I would say, like, at the present moment, it's like DSAs or Democratic Socialists of Canada. These organizations, they already have a group or a collective kind of mentality where, like, I don't know, I don't know of any big major Canadian anarchist organizations. So I think that the DSC, I can team up with them for now.
Yeah, that's the thing is that I've noticed is a lot of anarchists don't necessarily do huge political organizations. Like there is anarchistic co-ops. There's anarchy
sure.
that can be applied to basically anything. But again, our philosophy is like, you know, we function in a pragmatic way. Everyone calls anarchists idealists, and as if we are, we live in a fantasy world. But it's like, no. We're pragmatists, and we come to this conclusion through scientific evidence and rational investigation of what can work. Like, that's how anarchists become. was a scientist. He was a biologist. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So I don't think that anarchy is necessarily effective just as an organized thing. And yes, it is really difficult to organize. I think the most anarchist institution that ever existed in the United States was the Black Panther Party, and a lot of them got killed, like a lot, by the state. So cool.
Yeah, it seems like, oddly enough, whenever somebody threatens the status quo, they end up in big trouble or dead often.
Yeah, it's very sus, isn't it?
Yeah. We can say that without being conspiracy theorists, because it actually happened, and there's evidence to.
It was absolutely assassinated. There was a bunch of the Black Panthers who were assassinated. Yeah. We have the documents now. Like they've been released. We know this.
Yeah, these things are not hidden conspiracies. This, especially like the story of Fred Hampton, right? Like that. Mm-hmm. Like they went into his house and killed him, and that's all there was to it. Like.
Yeah. That's just what happened. So, I mean, the COINTELPRO was just a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't just like conspiracy theory and like being paranoid. Sometimes conspiracies can be real, and the trouble is determining which ones, right?
Yeah, I was just listening to a show. It's called Commons by the guys who do Canada Land. And they're talking about a person who came, he was part of the Black Panthers down in the US. Mm-hmm. And he was working with people in Canada that like trying to get, a left-wing movement, or he was working with young black men to try and work for a socialist revolution and whatnot. And he was always trying to instigate more more action. No, that's awesome.
He thinks it's his show.
Yeah, it is his show. That's right. That's perfect.
Yeah, there was a comment left on Utah Outcasts recently that was like, I miss Felicia, but I miss Orzo more. And I'm like, rude much.
Yeah.
He doesn't say anything.
Just steals the show by existing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where was I? I was.
He was in the Black Panthers, came up to Canada, and was radicalizing black young men.
Yeah, and was collecting weapons and was organizing these young men to do like criminal activities that, and eventually, like, long story short, they found out that he was actually working with the Canadian government. So this shit isn't like I'm saying, like conspiracy theory, maybe.
Sell out.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So, and a lot of these young men ended up in jail for like a long time.
Horrible. That is horrible. Oh my God, that's terrible.
So
no, like they do that. That's like a real thing. It's well, like now we have like news that with a lot of the protests from this last summer, police were instigating violence. There's evidence of police like going to meetings. I think that was from this summer, but it might not be. But this definitely happened at certain times, either in like the 60s or even before. Police would go to meetings and suggest crime, and then would hard crack down on any leftist at all, any left or libertarian in the sense of like liberty,
not right-wing capitalist nonsense.
Like the lie ideology. Yeah, there's no such thing as a right-wing libertarian.
No, that's right.
But, yeah, like they would actually go, and then they would say, we have information that they're planning crimes, when they were the ones who proposed the crimes. Yeah. And there's no evidence that like anyone was like on board with them. They were just like, yeah, it's a whole ass thing. It's a whole ass thing. I hate it. But and that's not to say that like crimes themselves, like, you're an anarchist, you get it. Crimes themselves are a concept, like they're a construct.
Yes.
Labeling anything a crime is a construct. And people are gonna be like, what about murder and rape? Well, see, if we don't view them as necessarily crimes, but as wrongness, as wrongdoing, we can approach them in different ways.
Yeah, that's right. Like, not to empathize with rapists and murderers too much, but there are reasons that those people do those things.
Right.
And if we can find out those reasons and we can address those reasons in various ways, then maybe we can reduce the number of times those happen.
Yeah. We can reduce maybe somebody from killing again, or, and yes, killing again in prison, I count that.
Yeah.
Or raping again. And yes, I count raping again. And not that rapists go to prison.
No, that's true. Yeah.
But like that's the thing that comes up is it's not about I was accused of this recently, actually, was he's like, you just feel sorry for these people, but they do bad things. I'm like, I don't feel sorry for them. I want to fix the problem.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not about feeling sorry for people who hurt people. It's about preventing the hurt in the first place. And it's about restoring as much as possible when hurt is done. And the thing is that revenge like revenge doesn't restore. It does not make someone feel whole. And closure's a myth. Like what we have found is, like, even with victims of rape, with victims of domestic violence, and survivors of murder, surviving family members and loved ones, what they want is like a restitution.
Right.
What they want is a resolution with the person who did it. And as a survivor myself of domestic violence and rape, that's what I've always wanted, for them to understand what they did and to have them take actions that would attempt to make me whole. And then, that wouldn't fix my PTSD, but it sure would go a long way to helping. Like, it actually, there's studies on this. We know that this stuff works. And if we focus the needs of victims, and if we focus on harm reduction and prevention, we find that punitive justice doesn't work.
Yeah.
And isn't the ideal to, like, get people to stop doing bad things and to reduce it? Like,
I was listening to something a while back, and they kind of brought up the difference between the conservative worldview and, like, even liberals and left-wing people have this worldview kind of shared, is that on one hand you have people that, like, on the left, we think that crime is a thing that happens because of reasons. And that if we deal with those reasons, then we can address the crime. But on the right, they think crime is just a part of society, and that there are always going to be bad people who do crimes.
Right.
And the reason that we have to lock them away is because those people we can't fix that. We just have to.
It's a fundamental problem with them as a person. And there are always people who are going to want to hurt, right? And to do bad things. Like, the one that gets me is, I'm like, the reason people steal is because they're poor. And that's by and large true. That's and well, that's not actually true. Like, individuals who steal, businesses are actually the ones who mostly wage theft.
Yeah. You gotta pick the nuances, right? Because
who are doing theft, cars, things. We had a generator stolen recently.
Is that right?
Yeah, we had a power outage. Oh, okay, that's a whole thing. But our my partner's parents lent us their generator, and it got stolen. And
that's too bad.
Yeah, and no one's stealing that because they're fine. Like, even if they're like paying their bills, like, even if they're working and paying their bills, they're not nailing it. They're not solid middle class taking 2 vacations a year.
No, that's right.
Like, so when we talk about why do people do things that harm others, sometimes there are very clear systemic issues.
Yeah.
When we talk about rape, there's clear evidence that there's, like, misogyny. And that's true with serial killers as well, is it's almost always misogyny based.
Right.
And then it's also, when we talk about rape of men, it's also a patriarchy issue. Like, so again, like that patriarchal control and dominance thing, hierarchy, fuels rape of women and rape of men. And I know that there are women who sexually assault and rape men and women. They are much lower. And I think that we would need to look into those reasons too. But when we look at the big picture, what we need to focus on right now, what's causing most of the problem, it's patriarchy. It's patriarchy.
I would almost be willing to guess that when women do rape men and women as well, or non-men, it's got to be linked to patriarchy as well. Like I would almost think so.
My instinct is that they're almost trying to achieve that sense of power that they see men having, right?
Right. Yeah. They've been socialized in such a way that made them behave this way because of
patriarchy.
Gender roles is
or maybe even like they see it as bucking a trend amongst women and being sexually submissive, right? And then they're sexually dominant, and how often is that fetishized in women being sexually dominant, right?
Yeah.
And I mean fetishized. It's not the expectation, it's not the norm, but there is a fetish of it in certain characters, and they're usually the bad guy, but kind of like a sexy and so
it's the man
like playing on a patriarchal role in doing that kind of sexual dominance,
right?
And I am not knocking playing with dominance in that.
No, of course not.
I think that even if we eliminated hierarchy, there is always going to be like a power play kind of thing, but if the pressures of it become so minimal, the stakes become so low, that it actually does become more of a play thing.
Right. Yeah.
Even in, say, sports competition, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Like you could still have sports in a anarchist society, right?
Of course. There's a game that they play in Florence, Italy that has been around before capitalism. Now, to be fair, it did come about in a hierarchical, but it actually came about in a really anarchistic time for Florence.
Okay.
It came about in a time when they were like under siege. And so it was like their way to come together as a community. Right.
That's
and so
right.
It's this really brutal, like almost like football game, but with bare knuckle boxing, which makes it 10 times safer than football.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Like way safer than football. There's 4 teams. It depends on where you're born. And within Florence, and you play 2 games a year. And you get out and it's always men. And at some point, you know, I'm sure there are women that could play, and that's something to address later. But the game is played is that it's not a competition like in your spirit. It's a competition for like just the solidarity of it, really, right? Like a game.
Yeah, that's
right.
And
so if you hit someone and they go down, that's the end. That you're not there to brutalize. You're there to compete. Like I said, it's bare knuckle boxing, therefore it's way safer than football. American football, people are curious.
Yeah, that's right.
So, so like in a time of siege, when the communities had to come together to form solidarity, they invented this game, still being played to this day. And it really is considered like a way to build the community around this competition that's really not a competition for a place in hierarchy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Anarchy can have sports, can have competition.
Yep.
It's just the context is very different.
Right. Yeah. There's no money involved, so that takes a lot of it out.
They all get wasted before they go to the hospital. Yeah.
Yeah.
People buy drinks, but like people buy the losers drinks. You know, it's a fun.
Right.
There's a Netflix show. I don't even know if it's still up there, but it was about weird sports around the world.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's one of the men they interviewed was like, "Oh yeah, I work with guys on other teams every day."
Of course.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
We don't hate each other.
But they're being like they don't get paid. It's all voluntary. In fact, they have to pay to be in the clubs.
Okay.
To support them, right? And it's not like pay like it's not a huge fee. It's just to maintain the club, their practice fields and their facilities and stuff.
Makes sense.
Yeah, you get that one, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so they have to pay to be in it. There's no glory. There's no jobs in it. There's nothing. You gain nothing other than
the joy of the game. Yeah.
It's great.
That's awesome.
It's fantastic. I think a lot more young men should be given productive ways to beat the fuck out of each other, honestly. Like ways that are not going to have consequences on anybody else. And the goal is just to knock them down, not brutalize.
Not beat into a bloody pulp where they're like debilitated afterwards.
Yeah, just like, like hairline fractures.
Yeah, that's right. Something to get the aggression out anyway.
There's too many young men without a way to get that out in a useful way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true. All right. I guess moving on.
Sorry.
No worries. I guess one of the things I was curious about was like, as an anarchist, like what is your vision for what you think the world ought to look like?
So, I mean, in my ideal sense, there are no borders, and it would just be essentially communities making agreements with other communities with the ability to combine those resources. It's not unlike American indigenous systems, actually.
Right. Yeah.
That's where a lot of my anarchy is influenced by, was American indigenous systems, because they were pretty anarchistic. But I'm also not a primitivist. But I think that what we view modern society as is so limited by capital. We're not even scratching the surface of the kind of dynamic, like this kind of broad way of living that we could without these oppressive structures. And so I would say, like, no borders, no money, probably no gender.
I think that's a great idea.
Right. And, just communities having the chance to adapt and live in solidarity for what works for them.
Yeah.
With the free ability to talk to anyone else and go anywhere else, and obviously, like, the very basic things, food, housing, medicine, those are just a guarantee. Like, they're not, nothing costs anything. So
obviously you should have a house and the food you need. Yeah. I often, like, when you talk to people who aren't anarchists, they always want to ask you, like, how does that going to work? Right. So I'm always trying to come up with like an explanation of how it's going to work. And I go, well, I mean, we could do a direct democracy within small communities, and we could have representatives that, rotate throughout the community.
Yeah, and nobody kind of the rotating kind of thing.
And so I'm never really entirely sure which is going to work, because we haven't had many chances. Like, there hasn't been.
The thing is that there has, like, I think as anarchists, we can have some ideas, right? And we can have some things that we want to try out, like Rojava. Right. I've heard a great update on how it's going there. I can't wait until we get a good, insider report. But Rojava, before the American troops pulled out of Syria, was doing some really good work heading towards anarchistic things, like decriminalizing a lot of behaviors and restorative justice, non-hierarchical like real strong pushes to abolishing hierarchy. And I think that that's a good way to look at things. But also, I don't want to lay out what a perfect society would look like. I think people, when given the chance to work in solidarity and
right,
do a living, I think we're really clever together.
Yeah, so, I was just listening to. I keep like referring to things I was listening to.
But I was listening.
I was listening to.
Hell is the one that's like.
Okay. Yeah, I was listening to Behind the Bastards. He did an episode recently on the evil or the rich panic or whatever, elite panic they call it.
That's why I started listening to A Paradise Built in Hell.
Yeah, so
like that's because he used he referenced that book a few times. And I was like, well, I'm going to listen to it. It's heartwarming. That book, right. It'll make you feel good.
Like that's the San Francisco, right?
That's one section. I'm actually onto the Halifax explosion, which he didn't talk about in that episode. But
okay, yeah, where basically like there's like a major fire that takes out a giant portion of the city, and
an earthquake that causes a fire.
Right. Yeah. So then, like, the community all bands together as people do, and like I don't know, just listening to that episode and the detail of humanity. As like when everybody is just looking out for their neighbor, and we all can take care of each other, and it actually gave me a little bit of hope for things.
It's even better in A Paradise Built in Hell. So I've been doing the audiobook because when I'm doing my food production at work, I get bored. I like to listen to things, and I don't like listening to the music that they play at work, especially now that it's Christmas music.
Oh yeah, I bet.
I am knocking Christmas music, actually. It's terrible, and don't make people listen to it. But it's also the worst of the Christmas music. Like,
oh yeah.
The worst it can be. So, but I've been when I'm not listening to news and music, usually on the weekends, I'll do Paradise Built in Hell.
Okay.
And there's even more stories. Like there was a woman who was she was a well-off journalist in San Francisco, and she went to Oakland, and she was going to buy herself some dresses, but she'd had such a wonderful time with the change in hierarchies and the freedom that women got actually in that time that she decided that it would be like she couldn't bear the idea of buying new dresses when people didn't have things, and the thing that really got to her was the idea of employing someone, of being their employer and taking that power over them. Now, this woman wasn't an avowed anarchist. Like, she just wasn't. But she had in that moment, like, I experienced this amazing place where we can walk with strangers. Her and her girlfriends walked with a strange man, and they could just talk to him. And that was, like, not allowed for them to do usually. And she was like, and excuse the racial insensitive term, but like this is how she referred to him, was like, haven't you just noticed that now you can greet the Chinaman as an old friend? Like, yeah, like
cringe, but yeah, I get it.
But what was meaning was like these barriers, these racial barriers, these class barriers, these gender barriers had been so taken down that now she felt solidarity and joy at anyone, and she kind of didn't understand why she was so invested in them in the first place, because this was so great now. And like that's a real thing, is like a lot of people who Asian people and Black people know racism didn't go away necessarily, but it was pretty severely lessened by the people who were living in the communal areas really strongly. And that speaks to how the artificial barriers between us is really causing so much pain.
Yeah.
And they are artificial. They benefit a very small amount.
Yeah. They're designed, like you say, they're intended to keep power in the hands of those who own capital.
Yeah. And that's why I think as white leftists, it's really important for us to be in solidarity with non-white left or non-white leftists and people of color, because
sure.
Fred Hampton said, we do not solve racism with racism, we solve racism with solidarity. Now, he was addressing a Black community saying, like, don't hate white people just because they're white. But when I hear that as a white person, I think that means that I have to address how I can act in solidarity with people of color. So,
yeah, because actually, like, it's breaking with white solidarity is a good thing.
Right. Yeah. My interests aren't in whiteness, though. I'm not interested in whiteness. My interests I want to abolish the concept of whiteness.
Yeah.
Get rid of it. But even outside my interests, I care so much about people. Like, I can sit here and make the empirical arguments that racism is bad for white people. It is. And white solidarity with whiteness really only seeks to create hierarchies within whiteness.
Yep.
And we can talk about how, like I said, my interests don't align with whiteness. It just doesn't. I'm a poor person. I'm a working class person. And whiteness is bad for me. Even if I do get some privilege from it, ultimately, my liberation comes with solidarity from other people of oppressed classes.
Yes.
But beyond selfishness, I just really care about other people. And I don't know what to do. I want to explain that to people because that's like my primary motivation.
Right.
I think racism hurts people and I don't want it to anymore.
Yeah. It's funny, actually. The older I get and the more radical I get, that's so much more of my motivation is, like you say, like I started caring so much more about other humans than I did about, people like the power, the system and property and even myself. Like, I care about other people way more than any of that stuff. So,
like I started making decisions for myself in a way that was like, what do I really want out of life? Do I really want to be working constantly? And the answer is no. Do I want to live a life that is fueled by wealth building? And like, I had to be no. So if I start thinking about myself as somebody I care about, right, I start realizing that I don't want to live the kind of life that capitalism basically forces on people.
Yeah.
And I look at everyone else suffering around me and I'm just like, they deserve better, damn it. They all deserve so much better. My mom, she went like a year without insurance and she's in her 50s, for fuck's sake. Like, this is absurd. We shouldn't be doing it. My dad doesn't have insurance right now because he retired before he had Medicare. What the hell? And
so he just can't get sick or injured.
Yeah, and he doesn't get that, unfortunately. He seems to like think that it's fine. But I'm like, Dad, they'll let you die.
Yeah,
so dark. But I don't know. I just started thinking about how almost everyone I've met in my life doesn't suck as much as what we ask them to suffer through.
Right.
In fact, I mean, I've met some real shitty people, but they'd probably be less shitty if they hadn't suffered as much as they'd suffered through.
Right. Yeah.
I like them. I can just say that.
Yeah.
Would be like, still fuck you on like a personal level.
But systemically, you shouldn't have to be in this position you're in.
Yeah. My ex-husband who abused me, his father was abusive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so.
Right? Like, that's right. It can go deep.
Yeah. Like it, I guess it's the, in a sense, it's the, everybody's a product of their environment, right? Like,
yeah, and I want people to be able to live in an environment where if they're an asshole, it's because they're just a true asshole.
Yeah, that's right.
I want everyone to have the freedom to be the real asshole they truly are inside. Because I mean, I don't think everyone's always going to get along. I don't think everyone's always going to like each other. I do think a lot of the people. Ow! What the hell, man? He's developed this thing where he like claws me now.
Just get your attention.
Yeah, no, I don't have to put up with that. I can put him on the ground.
There you go.
Gently, because you're not supposed to drop cats. It can be really hard on their backs.
I see.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was not actually aware of that.
Yeah, you're not supposed to drop them from this height.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. They're really, really good at like about like over your head height. That's when like they actually can slow themselves enough.
Oh, their springiness and their agility.
Reflex and they're spreading out they actually slow themselves from about over your head height to something like 6 stories, I think. It's
wow.
But above 6 stories, no good. And under 5 feet, not great.
Not enough time to spread themselves out and slow them down, I guess. Mm-hmm. Okay. Interesting. That's good to know.
Yeah. So I do think that a lot of the reasons people don't get along are from alienation through competition. Competition for survival where it doesn't need to exist. Yeah. Yeah. But
yeah, like, I mean, it's probably a tired trope at this point, but I have often said that I think despite how abhorrent I think the right is, I think a lot of their shitty views and a lot of their shitty attitudes come because of this alienation from capital and from their own labor, right?
Yeah, no, I absolutely think so. I think a lot of people who have like these conservative things are coming from a place of insecurity, like literally in their ability to survive, right? And that's an illusion. That ability to survive was manufactured scarcity. The scarcity isn't real. We have enough to go around.
For sure.
But they truly think that if they haven't earned it, if they are surviving, it's because they earned it. And therefore, if somebody isn't surviving, it's because they didn't deserve it, because there's not enough. They think there's not enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is. There's plenty.
There's lots.
And I truly think that a lot of people who live with conservative mindsets are not super happy people. That's another great thing about being an anarchist is you can be like, oh, wait, I don't have to follow a lot of stupid rules. Like
I can do this because I just want to, or I don't have to do this.
The roles that we take on in my relationship are the ones that we feel we can, and we have all this freedom in this relationship to explore as we feel we need to, in relationships, in work, in just like fucking in just remodeling your damn house. You paint the walls. People are like, well, resale, you want neutral colors. And I'm like, fuck your neutral colors. I want purple.
Yeah, that's right.
I actually no, I was going to use purple on one of them.
Yeah, it's
you get a lot of variation. You get a lot of freedom in a personal sense. You're so
what a bossy kitty.
You're so bossy. Stubborn as shit. Him and I have been together for a long time.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. It's pretty special.
I think that this could be the point in the show where we go on to our counter propaganda. Cool. So
anarchists really are such sweeties, aren't we? Like we're so tender. Like that's what we are.
Yeah.
I mean, don't be wrong. We'll punch a Nazi. We will do whatever it takes. But at the end of the day, it's because we really are just as sweet as pie.
Every anarchist I know that has that I've spoken to on a video chat has been like, Ooh, a kitty cat.
Yeah.
It's
every anarchist I know is just like cuddly, and really the reason they're anarchists is truly for the best reasons.
Yeah.
Unlike, like a lot of right-wing libertarians, they almost seem to be operating from a place like, well, if I didn't have the government, I'd be the rich guy, No, you wouldn't. You'd be a serf like the rest of us. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if it's capitalism and no government, that's feudalism. We tried it once. But it's we're sweeties.
I guess there's also the people who don't know that much about it, who are very like just trying to be edgy and like there is a level of that. But
then I think there's people with a genuine moral stance on liberty, truly, but they are conditioned into capitalist realism. They really truly believe that capitalism is the only economic system. They'll say things like, capitalism has always existed. There's always a market. One, no, there hasn't. Two, even before capitalism, markets didn't function like you think they function.
No, even most of those people don't know how markets function now.
Right. So they exist in a capitalist realism. I've met those libertarians too. I actually think they're the ones easiest to like bump over to our side.
Right.
Yeah. They have a moral stance on liberty and individualism, but not really.
Right.
Like just the concept that individuals matter, I guess, is really what they're thinking. I agree.
Yeah. Like the I guess individuality versus individualism, like
right. Yeah.
kind of distinction.
Yeah. Whereas, but they think of it as, they read Ayn Rand and they're like, yeah, it's individualism.
Right, yeah.
You're like, no, that's not.
Every man for himself.
I think that there are just some people who just really do believe that there's not another option.
Yeah, no, I think that's accurate. All right, so counter propaganda.
Counter propaganda.
I have a Google alert set in my emails for anything that comes up with the word anarchist, and so this article came across my information, and it's from the Blaze.
I'm working my way through his Arguing with Socialists book. It's bad.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
The prose, honestly, nothing he's said has been so offensive as the goddamn jokes.
I bet.
I'm not offended at the joke. Like, they're super, like, I've heard all of these, like, racist jokes before.
Right.
I guess I'm offended on a conceptual level, but it's not shocking.
They're cringy.
They're terrible. They're so bad. And the prose is atrocious. The prose... All right, I'm back to shit.
Anyway, yes. So it's from the Blaze. I didn't actually bother to see who the actual author of the article was, but it came out today, yesterday on December 1st. And the website has the title. Actually, it didn't really have a good title, but the first line underneath it was, anarchists are calling for vengeance and a, quote, week of action over the death of 100% Antifa militant Michael Reinol, who fatally shot a pro-police activist in Portland over the summer in an apparent ambush. And so the article goes on to quote anarchist group, The Base, who posted a call to action on their website for fellow anarchists and anti-fascists to, quote, take actions in their cities, towns, neighborhoods, or homes, whether banner drops, postering demonstrations, direct actions, lighting fireworks, commemorations, or whatever creative ideas people come up with.
Okay. So yeah, like I heard.
There's a distinction there, right?
yeah, there's a distinction. So it's like, direct action would be things like, blocking the doors to the police building, or
right.
blocking the doors to City Hall. going to an FBI building in your area and having like a direct, like blocking the parking lot. That would be a good direct action.
Right.
Direct action could, a day of action could just be, like they said, hanging posters.
Yeah.
Like taking some time to really focus on this injustice, because it was obviously injustice. Jesus Christ, he was executed.
Yeah, essentially he was murdered by the police.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Apparently, as he was going to his car,
Yep.
There were no video cameras, no body cameras, no nothing, no evidence.
No body cams. Wow.
Yeah, go figure, hey. But the U.S. Marshals did say that he was armed and threatened the police. So naturally, we have to believe them.
You have to believe them. They never lie.
No, the police wouldn't lie.
I can totally believe him being armed. That's not like, I know.
No, that's right.
Anarchists who are armed all the time, but like the threaten the police thing, I'm like, you guys are threatened if people like roll their eyes at you. So, yeah, miss me.
The mere fact that he was armed is enough for them to feel threatened.
Exactly. Now, they didn't see it until they'd actually killed him, but
right.
They had a real good fifi.
Yeah, that's right.
Feeling that he was armed.
Yes.
So that's enough. They felt like he could be possibly armed.
Right.
Therefore, they were threatened.
And they can do that because they're the police.
They can do that because often violent agents of the state.
Yeah, that's right. And like the base did, in fact, call for an action based on what they believe, to be an unjust assassination. Yeah.
There's a lot of things you can do as action.
Yeah, that's right.
You could write a nice poem. That's action.
That's an action. That's right.
Action. Yeah. You can talk to your friends and family. Anarchists are really big about, hey, did you hear about this injustice?
Right.
And just awareness is a form of action, right?
Yep. That's right. So I guess the reason that
it's scary.
Yeah, that's right. The reason that I'm calling this a propaganda piece by the Blaze is because they're framing what is a very reasonable set of like actions and demonstrations and a call for like just people to show their solidarity and support for this. Yeah.
Solidarity and awareness, really, right?
And essentially the Blaze is framing it as though this is a bunch of terrorists who are going to destroy your house and burn down your city.
A day of action, as if like you're going to take revenge on random individuals.
Right, yeah.
Which is not an anarchy thing.
No, not an anarchy thing at all.
Super not an anarchy thing, actually. Despite what you learned from the Joker.
Right. Yeah. The Joker was not an anarchist.
No. He was something. And there's times I listen to him, I'm like, you have got me, bro. It's random violence I got a problem with.
Yeah, that's right. You made a good point, but then you ruined it by killing somebody.
You made a great point, then you blew up a hospital, and now I can't.
Yeah. Yeah, and I put a note here. They cannot fathom that a group would put the defense of others as their paramount concern, and as a result, they put the call to action into a category that includes acts of terrorism.
Right.
So, not being selfish is not something they understand.
Yeah, they really think of it as terms of retribution and like there are none so strange in their fear as the conqueror, because they live in fear that like what they've done to others will be done to them. They live in fear that they were not superior, merely lucky.
Yeah.
So that's N.K. Jemisin paraphrased. Sorry, one of my favorite quotes from one of her books. But the idea being like they can't fathom the idea that we're not interested in revenge. Well, sometimes I am. I don't believe that's a viable path, but
right.
I do like watching Nazis get punched. And Not cops. I don't like seeing cops get punched. Mm-mm. So
that's on the record, folks.
I don't. I said I don't. That's obviously not like what we generally consider praxis in
right.
In a general sense, like in something like this, in a call to action. The call to action is to bring awareness and solidarity to because of injustice was done. Injustice. Right. There was an injustice and violence.
Yep.
And that's bad. And maybe that's like enough for people to care, but they don't think of it that way.
Yeah.
Just something bad happened and we don't like it.
I think
so we have to revenge it.
Yeah. Yeah, our vengeance is awareness and and
trying to build that class solidarity, right?
Yeah, that's right. And trying to change the world into a better place. So
like, free to be whatever asshole you want to be, just as without the external pressure.
Yeah, without that systemic power. It just so happens that in the article in the Blaze, there were many contributions from Andy Ngo.
No.
So yeah.
Oh man. Guy.
Yeah. So that's I just had to throw that in there because that always is a point in credibility's sake, right? Like it definitely.
It's just, they're terrified of anarchists. Like they are this, and this is, I know, like people would be like, well, they think that people think anarchy means chaos, and I'm like, no, but this has been a through line. Since anarchy has been coined, this was a major problem with indigenous American communities, is again that they were anarchistic, and the colonizers didn't much care for that. That's part of why the oppression was so severe, the genocide was so severe, was because they weren't easily governed. And so the thing is, like, this idea that anarchists need to be stopped by any means necessary, to be characterized as agents of chaos and danger, is because we're not, but we are a threat to power structures. Like our ideology itself demands no power structures.
Yeah.
And like they're terrified of communists in general, but like there's a lot of communists who really don't like anarchists because they're vanguardists.
Yeah, there are many communists who are very pro-authoritarian, apparently. So
yeah, so it's like wherever people believe that power is necessary, they're not paying attention to evidence. First of all, second of all, they really, really don't like the rest of us who say no.
Yeah, that's right.
We are going to cause chaos, when in reality, like, no, we want order, but we want order from a more, I guess, organic place. An order of, one that might come out of a social species.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. Community style order.
Yeah, that has entirely relied on each other for survival since we became a species. Yeah, that kind of order.
Yeah.
And we're also the kind of species that can think about it and talk about it, and then we could do more order.
Right.
We could be bonobos, but better.
We could.
We could.
Yep, we could.
Why we couldn't.
We just gotta actually recognize it.
Yep. But that's terrifying to people who want power, who think power is good, actually.
That's right.
Because they're the ones that should be in power.
Or so they imagine.
Or their position of privilege is deserved.
Yeah. That's right. So did I roll over your counter propaganda, or did you
No, I didn't really. I was like, I had a kind of one, but I didn't prep super hard. Sorry.
No worries.
It's the holiday season and I work in retail.
Yeah, that makes it a busy time for sure.
Yeah.
So I've got now the segment I call Foes and Comrades. And for this week, my foes are the Blaze and Andy Ngo. Go figure. I read an article by them. It made me mad.
Andy Ngo will steal footage to edit it down to make right-wingers look like the victims.
Yeah.
And it works. That's the thing that frustrates me, is it just works. People believe him because they don't ever get exposed to the full footage.
Yeah, that's right.
And he'll just lie. He'll just lie.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nope. Known liar. Well-known liar. And yeah. I'm not afraid to say that, because if it comes to a lawsuit, I can show where he has lied.
Where he lied. Yeah.
I do not have to worry about this.
Please sue us, Andy. That would be amazing for our viewer count.
Oh, would that ever be amazing, actually?
It'd be so good for us. Andy Ngo sued us. Oh.
Yeah. You want to expose people to more anarchism. This is how you do it.
Please sue us.
And my comrades this week are the anarchist organization that the Blaze talked about, the Base, which is out of I think it said Brooklyn, which was their Brooklyn committed. They are a revolutionary anarchist center in Brooklyn committed to the spreading of anarchist ideas and organizing.
Hell yeah, solidarity.
So solidarity with them for sure.
My anarchy personal goals right now are to develop a co-op specialty cheese shop, because that's my industry. And I know people in the industry,
Nice.
But with an anarchist principle, there's the Marxist-Leninist kind of worker-owned co-op where you vote for your managers. I'm not actually terribly opposed to that in our current system. I think there's some workplaces, especially if you employ a lot of young people, it's a really good way to do it.
Yeah.
But in a more specialized thing, I think total cooperation, total equality is definitely the most effective. That's my anarchistic goal right now. Is
Nice.
Anarchistic organized co-op.
That's awesome.
It's a long-term kind of nebulous goal, but that's the hope.
Yeah. I'm a long way off from it, but I've been considering contacting some of the delivery drivers and Uber drivers in my city, because I think an anarchistic organized delivery, food delivery and stuff, I think that would blow the competition out of the water, because you would be able to be so flexible. You'd be able to you'd be able to do things that these hierarchical systems would not be able to do. You'd be able to respond very quickly to crises. You'd be able to, I think that's a great idea. That's a fantastic idea. Yeah. As opposed to the current model where it's every man for himself and we're all competing against each other.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's terrible.
It's that the collaboration would make so much more sense.
Yeah.
You could just be I can't get this. Can you get this? If you have a whole bunch of orders, you guys can coordinate around who's getting what. I think it'd be fantastic. They're not ready for it. Do it now.
Do it now. That's right. Before they prep. Yeah, for sure. So I guess that's the episode. Where can people find you online if you want to be found?
Yeah. So my okay. I'm going to say this now, so keep an eye out. I plan to have it up in the next few days, so people should see this at some point. You can find my thirsty Twitter and Instagram, RRLush.
Okay.
Or RRLush 1789. I don't know if RRLush is available on Twitter. Yeah. But it'll be RRLush or RRLush 1789. You can find my political Twitter at Felicia Entwined. Entwine. but in past tense. And you can see me every week on the Utah Outcasts on YouTube,
Yes.
where you can listen to the podcast.
I tend to listen to the podcast, but
you're a listener. Yeah, that's cool. It is an audio heavy show. But
yeah.
there's a cat. Sorry,
right.
That was this one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, right on.
Cool. This is so fun. This is nice to catch up.
Yeah, it was good. I have been, as I've been doing this show, I've been starting to reach out to old contacts from my brainstorm days because I've been out of the loop for a couple of years for podcasting and stuff. So
yeah, that life will get you, won't it?
Oh, it sure does sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, and this year has been a thing.
Yes, it has. Oh, right on. Thank you very much for joining me, and
thank you for having me. It was nice to talk to you.
Have a good one.
You too.
That's all, folks, and thanks for listening. And remember to share the episode with your friends and on the social medias. Post it in Facebook groups, send it on WhatsApp, and basically annoy the hell out of everyone you know by telling them how good this show is and how much they should listen to it. This week I have to give some thanks to my supporters. So thank you to everyone who supports this show on Patreon. I have 17 supporters who contribute $1 or more each month. I set up my Patreon so that folks who contribute at the I'm No Liberal tier or above get a special thank you, and I haven't done that on the show yet that I can recall. So thank you very much to Destin Doesn't Suck That Much, which is a leftover joke from the old brainstorm days. Thanks to Some Random Geek, the official agitprop radical anarchist of the Steve Shives channel, and thank you to Dan F. Smith. So thanks once again to everybody who supports me on patreon.com/skepticalleftist. You can also send me money on PayPal at paypal.me/brainstormpodcast, because apparently you can't just change your PayPal account without a million extra bullshit steps. Every dollar that you send my way helps me spend more time on this podcast and YouTube channel, as well as the other shows that I participate in and produce. If you want to become a patron, then I will provide a link to my Patreon in the notes for this episode. If you can't contribute financially, then a 5-star rating and a review on your podcast app of choice or one of the podcast review sites like Podchaser would be great. I'm working on a plan to get some bonus content just for patrons going, but I need more income from the show to take the time away from my jobs to do that. If you want to find more from me, then you can make sure to check out my Linktree at linktree.com/skepticalcory. You can find all my social media stuff there, as well as my other shows, which include Skeptarchy, From Many People's Strength, and The Feminist Family. In case you don't want to go there, my Twitter is @hardcoreskeptic, and my Facebook page is The Mind of a Skeptical Leftist, or you can send me a friend request at facebook.com/cjbrainstorm. Thanks very much. Have a good one.